ಸಂಸರದವಾ ನಲಲಿದಲೋಕ ತ್ರಣಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಘನ ಘನಾತ್ವಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣಾರವಿಂದಂ. महाप्रभो कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसो रसेन रोमाञ्चकम्पाश्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमाजनादौ युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसाद स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान्. कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजतः सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम्. प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसिद्धै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया. तत्रातिदक्ष्यात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रै युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः. समस्तशास्त्रै उक्तस्तथा किन्तु प्रभोय प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्. यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान्न गति कुतोऽपि. ध्यायां सुवं तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् ध्यायां स्तुवं तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामिने स्वामिनेति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hariharaya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana, Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Sri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha, Hariharaya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah, यादवाय माधवाय केशवाय नमः हरिहराय नमः कृष्ण यादवाय नमः यादवाय माधवाय केशवाय नमः हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा नील माधव राधा नील माधव श्री राधे जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
हरे कृष्णा। ನಮಸ್ತೆ ನರಸಿಂಹಾಯ ಪ್ರಹ್ಲಾದಲಾಯದಾಯಿನೇ ನಮಸ್ತೆ ನರಸಿಂಹಾಯ ಪ್ರಹ್ಲಾದಲಾಯದಾಯಿನೇ ಹಿರಣ್ಯಕಾಶಿ ಪೂರ್ವಜಃ ಶಿಲತಂಕನಕಾಲಾಯೇ ಇತೋ ನರಸಿಂಹೋ ಪರತೋ ನರಸಿಂಹೋ ಯತೋ ಯತೋ ಯಾಮಿ ತತೋ ನರಸಿಂಹೋ ಭಯಿ ನರಸಿಂಹೋ ಹೃದಯೇ ನರಸಿಂಹೋ ನರಸಿಂಹಮದಿಂ ಶರಣಾಂ ಪ್ರಪದೇ ತವ ಕರಕಮಲವರೇಣಕಾಂ ಅಭೂತಶೃಂಗ ದಲಿತಾ ಹಿರಣ್ಯಕಶಿಪು ತನುಭೃಂಗ ಕೇಶವಧೃತಾ ನರಹರಿರೂಪ जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमलवरे तुतसिंगा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे य नरसिंह हरे जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रहलाद प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय नरसिंह स्वामी की जय।
कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो प्रिय अभिलाषे। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो प्रिय अभिलाषे। जे तुम्हार शरण लो तर वांछा पूर्ण हो। तर शरण लो तर वांछा कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी। मोर ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास। मोरा ये नयने हेरिबो सदा जुगल रूप राशि। तीनि विधन धरो सखीरानुगत करो। सेवा अधिकार दिए करो निज दासी। दीन कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा हो। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमी सदा ये न बासी। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमी सदा ये न बासी। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। यानिकानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। यानिकानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। यानिकानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी. जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी. निताय गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, निताय गौर हरि बोल. जय जय प्रभुपा, जय जय प्रभुपा. जय जय गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव. वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. श्रीमती वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Tulsi, beloved of my desire is to
My desire is also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shiv and Dharam. Thus, within my vision, I shall behold the beautiful pastime of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow a Kara Danso's Virgin. Please give me the privilege devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in the love, Shri Radha and Govinda, Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for the propagation of holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods Allah, Shiva, or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or to pursue the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activity in the strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in your understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses. In order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as I trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion to the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Tarpana Marjanam Pavamaha Tavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipatam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nitya Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etatishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durudevami Desham Yaha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manatena Kirtanya Sadaharihi Na Thanam Na Chanam Na Sundarim Kavitam Vajakadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Pavata Bhaktir Haituki Toi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Pavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Duri Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Kaladashuru Daraya Vadanam Katkada Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kada Tava Nama Krahane Pavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name ashirishava padaratam pinnastu mam atarshanam marmhatam karotu va yatha tatha va vitatha lampato mat prananathastu se eva na paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is prime benediction for humanity in the large, because it spreads the rays and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases ocean transcendental bliss, and enable us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction human beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have vested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach your holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son Hamarjananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the ardent at the lotus feet. O my Lord, while my eyes bedecked with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up, or hair my body stand and a recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling of separation becomes a moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and a feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai.
Shri Guru Purnama prayers.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana
Vitam Tam Sajivam Saivaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakaya Vitam Sa Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Desatarine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivarsavanavi Devi Daitaya Pripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Tarine Parve Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Nupanuga Viruddha Papa Siddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Guru Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambude Padam Bujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandadamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Bhava Vamestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jaganatayate Namaha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prabhupadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurapushe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Agyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Panguru Mama Mandala Tergati Vasarvasva Padam Brocho Radha Madanamohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadramadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevimana Smarami Shimhan Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinath Takstriyestunam Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarna Karanam Chintamani Prakarsatma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshapite Susravir Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrama Sevimana Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Enan Kanantam Aravinda Dalayataksha Parhavitam Samasitam Vidasundarangam Kandarpa Goti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobha Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrika Lasarvanamali Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranaya Keli Kalavilasa Shamam Jivangalarita Nita Prakasa Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Anyani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Pantika Elki Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayavanamsha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamya Vayoratapi Manaso Mupungamana Sopyastiyat Praparisimya Vichinti Tattve Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Jayatum Jagadanda Kotyam Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Yomanajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Maven Hima Prakatai Stuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Ananda Chinmayara Satpati Bhavitavis Tabirya Even Chirupa Daya Kalab Goloka Even Ivisata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santakshadeva Hidaya Suvilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Ramadi Murti Sukala Niyamena Tishtana Navataram Karud Bhuvanesha Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Purusham Tamaham Vajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. Go ahead.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with moon lacket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, he is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm Goloka with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrisimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Brahmasamhita ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're continuing today in Canto 3, Chapter 9, verse number 12. Who would like to read? Canto 3, Chapter 9, verse number 12.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The translation. My Lord, you are not very much satisfied by the worship of the demigods, who arrange for your worship very
Pompously.
pompously, with various paraphernalia, but who are full of material hankerings. You are situated in everyone's heart as the super soul, just to show your causeless mercy, and you are the eternal well wisher. But you are unavailable for the non devotee. Purport. The demigods in the celestial heavenly planets, who are appointed administrators of the material, but at the same time, they have desires for material opulence and sense gratification. The Lord is so kind that He awards them all sorts of material happiness, more than they can desire. But He is not satisfied but He is not satisfied with them, because they are not pure devotees. The Lord does not want any one of His innumerable sons, the living entities, to remain in the material world of threefold miseries, to perpetually suffer the material pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. The demigods in the heavenly planets and many devotees on this planet also want to remain in the material world as devotees of the Lord and take advantage of material happiness. They do so at a risk of falling down to the lower status of existence, and this makes the Lord dissatisfied with them. The pure devotees are not desirous of any material enjoyment, nor are they averse to it. They completely dovetail their desires with the
Nor are they adverse to it. In other words, they're not interested in it, nor are they against it. Okay, good.
they completely dovetail their desires with the desires of the Lord and perform nothing on their personal account. Arjuna is a good example. On his own sentiment, due to family affection, Arjuna did not want to fight. But finally, after hearing Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he agreed to fight in the interests of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is very much satisfied with pure devotees because they do not act for sense gratification, but only in terms of the Lord's desire. As Paramatma or Super Soul, He is situated in everyone's heart, always giving everyone the chance of good counsel.
That means good advice.
Yes. Thus, everyone should take the opportunity and render transcendental loving service to Him, wholly and solely. The non-devotees, however, are neither like the demigods nor like the pure devotees, but are averse to the.
So then you have three categories here. You have pure devotees, you have mixed devotees, and you have non-devotees.
But are averse to the transcendental relationship with the Lord. They have revolted against the Lord and must perpetually undergo the reactions of their own activities. Bhagavad Gita 4.11 states, although the Lord is equally kind to every living being, the living beings, for their own part, are able to please the Lord to either a greater or lesser extent. The demigods are called Sakama devotees, or the devotees with the material desires in mind, while the pure devotees are called Nishkama devotees, because they have no desires for their personal interests. The Sakama devotees are self-interested because they do not think of others, and therefore they are not able to satisfy the Lord perfectly. Whereas the pure devotees take the missionary responsibility of turning non-devotees into devotees, and they are therefore able to satisfy the Lord more than the demigods. The Lord is unmindful of the non devotees, although He is sitting within everyone's heart as well wisher and super soul. However, He also gives them the chance to receive His mercy through His pure devotees who are engaged in missionary activities. Sometimes the Lord Himself descends for missionary activities, as He did in the form of Lord Chaitanya. But mostly, He sends His bona fide representatives, and thus He shows His causeless mercy towards the non devotees. The Lord is so satisfied with His pure devotees that He wants to give them the credit for missionary success. Although He could do the work personally, this is the sign of His satisfaction with His pure Nishkama devotees compared to the Sakama devotees. By such transcendental activities, the Lord simultaneously becomes free from the charge of partially and exhibits partiality, charge of partiality, and exhibits His pleasure with the devotees.
Okay, so that's a very important statement there. Let's just stop for a second, trying to understand what he said. He says, the Lord is so satisfied with His pure devotees that He wants to give them the credit for missionary success, although He could do the work personally. This is the sign of His satisfaction with His pure niskama, meaning they have no material desire, devotees, compared to the sakama, devotees who have material desires. By such transcendental activities, the Lord simultaneously becomes free from the charge of partiality and exhibits His pleasure with the devotees. So, the charge of partiality means, oh, He only supports His devotees. He doesn't care about non-devotees. That's not true. For the mixed devotees and non-devotees, He will send His pure devotees to preach to them. And this saves Him from being accused of being partial. Now, that's a very profound statement, because there's a verse in the 9th chapter that says, Samoham sarvabhute su namedvesastina priya ye bhajante tumam bhaktya maite te suschapyaham. I envy no one, Krishna says, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion as a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Now, that means that Krishna sometimes will satisfy the desires of the demigods. And you would say, well, why is He doing that? Because those are material desires. Well, man proposes, God disposes. I'm sure you've heard that before. What does that mean? Everything depends on what we're desiring. If we keep desiring material sense gratification, eventually Krishna said, look, I tried everything, but still you're not giving this up. So obviously you really want it very much, so I'll give it to you. And now, does that mean He's being mean? No. He's respecting the limited free will that the jiva has. Now, if he misuses that free will and keeps desiring something that's not good for himself, because the jiva keeps thinking of that, eventually Krishna says, okay, that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. Now, for such people, Krishna will send his pure devotee like Prabhupada and other pure devotees like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to preach to the people who are either mixed devotees or non-devotees. Therefore, you can't blame him for being partial. He's not partial, he's not impartial. He's completely transcendental. So, because he sends his devotees to help those who are adamant to hold on to material desires, he's helping them, giving them a chance to become devotees or pure devotees by associating with pure devotees. So let's read the purport to 9th chapter, 29th verse. 9th chapter Bhagavad Gita, 29th verse.
Translation: I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also friend to him. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So one may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not a discrimination, it is natural.
Okay, now let's see what he means there. Let's say your child went to an overnight sleepover in the neighbor's house with the neighbor's children. Right? All of a sudden you hear some fire engines late at night. Let's say it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So you wake up and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you see that the neighbor's house is on fire. Now you run over there and someone says, there's kids in the house. So when you run into the house, which kid are you going to look for first? The neighbor's kid or your kid?
Our own child.
Huh?
Our own child, because...
Yeah, it's normal. See. Now let's say you save your child. Are you going to run in a second time for the neighbor's child?
Yes.
You'll try it, yes.
Yes.
But the first child you're going to look for is your own. So that's why it says here that he takes a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service. But that is not discrimination. It is natural. Yeah.
So in this example, you are considering two kids, of your kid and the neighbor's kid. What about you have two kids and both are in the fire?
You would go save them first.
Yeah, but
Would you do that, or
I'm saying who
would you
will
say you would only save one of your kids, then you take that kid out, then you come back and save one of the neighbor's kids, you take that kid out, then you run back in and try and save your second kid? What would you do?
Yeah, so in that case, like the partiality comes when you are considering your own kid and the other kid. When you have both your kids, like both your kids.
So are you going to save only one, or are you going to try and save both at the same time? You learn things by analyzing yourself. You learn things you don't know by analyzing what you know. Now you have, let's say, two kids. They're in a house that's on fire. When you run into that house, who are you going to try and save? Huh? Who are you going to try and save?
But I'm saying like if
Yeah, okay. So then you save your kids. Now, are you going to run in a second time to save the other family's kid? Huh?
yeah,
Okay. So it's natural. You saved your kids first. Now you're going to run in and try and save the other family's kids.
I think the question here, Maharaj, is for the Lord, whether we are a devotee or non-devotee, we are his children. So that analogy, if we apply to the Lord, then the Lord should be saving both children, whether they are devotees or non-devotees, because they are his children. So
That's your speculation.
no, because based on
No,
our
that's a speculation. You analyze yourself. You are part and parcel of Krishna. You analyze yourself. Now you can understand something about God also.
no, so that's the question, Maharaj. So question is, let's say if my two children, one is favorable to me, one is not favorable to
That's
me.
another question now. Now you're changing the question.
No, I thought that was this question.
No, you didn't say anything about one is favorable to you, the other one's not favorable. You're making things up, Prabhu. You're speculating.
Okay, maybe that's the follow-up question I have. Let's say,
But wait a minute, that's not the question. I asked him a question. I said, when you run into the house, if let's say you have two kids in the house, who are you going to save first? Your two kids or the neighbor's kids?
definitely our kids first.
No, answer the question.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So now you know something about God also. He's going to save first the devotees who are dedicated to him completely. And then the others, he sends his pure devotees to help them. If you understand yourself, you'll be able to understand something about God. Up to 78% of God's qualities you'll be able to understand. Now, there was no question of one kid is favorable, the other kid is not favorable. That was just something you came up with just now. He never mentioned anything like that.
Yeah, but can I ask that question, Maharaj? Because I think the analogy here is, the analogy is that, let's say two of my children are in that same situation.
One of them is favorable to you and the other one is not.
Not favorable. But I would treat both of them as my children, right? And then I wouldn't be thinking at that point about who's favorable. So that's the, I mean, that's a question.
Because you have a attachment due to, like, was your child always against you? Like from the first day they were born, one was always for you, one was always against you? No. At a certain point, due to modern education, one of them turned against you. But you're not hateful of that child. And in a dire situation, you would do everything to save that child also. That's normal. So then what other question is there then?
So
You're trying to prove God is not being equal to everyone?
No, I guess I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of, I don't know if I would do any differently than the Lord. For example, let's say I can only, so if two of my children, one is very favorable to, or like very really attached to.
Analyze yourself. Then you can understand something about Krishna. So you have two children in the house. Both of them are your children. Both of them you raised. At one point, one of the children turns against you. Now they're both in the same, let's say, dangerous situation. You run into the house and you see both of your kids there. You try and save them both, even though one of them might be against you. By the way, that might change their opinion about you. Right? So that's natural. Right? Just like even in my case, I've had some of my kids turned against me. But yet, when they invited me to marriage and the whole family was going to be there, I didn't refuse to go. I went there. And because I went there, everything was fine. So there's no like badla, revenge, right? That's not the nature of a devotee. The devotee is always meek and humble in their dealings with others. So, okay, now let's continue reading this. Yeah.
So, Maharaj, the situation, like what Prabhu has said, is very tricky, but
Very what?
tricky.
Tricky.
Tricky. So, like, I want to give example of my house, basically. So, my grandfather, we have a joint family. So, there were two families were there, means his sons, basically, and their children's. So, one children, she makes a mistake, and my grandfather didn't scold the child who made the mistake, but he scolded other child.
To
So
be fair, is that what?
yeah, so the reason the other child then later asked him, like, why you did like that, even though the mistake is done by the other child. So he said that I know we have to be together at home, all of us. They are not favorable in keeping themselves in the house. So I want my house to be proper order. So I scolded you. I know that you has you can take my scold. You will not revolt back. The other person may revolt back, and they may use that excuse to do bad things for the family. So he took the thing on higher level, basically, to maintain peace in the family. So that was his objective. So the other person who was scolded understood that keeping the peace in the family is more important than other things, basically. So everybody can live happily under one roof.
Well, is that what happened? in
Yes,
Long
yes.
term? Okay. All right, so now continue reading.
So, any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every
Oh, I
living
see. Special interest in his own children, right? Go ahead.
the Lord claims that every living entity in whatever form is his son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He is just like a cloud which pours rain all over, regardless of whether it falls on a rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives specific attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they are always transcendently situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in Him. The Lord says here distinctly, Maite, they are in me. Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. Whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotees are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when the living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is the diamond. And so this combination is very nice. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If reciprocal relationship...
Now, see, that's a major statement. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. In other words, he will subordinate himself. Just like he subordinates himself to be the chariot driver of Arjuna in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna is ordering him, now go here, now come over here, now let's do this, now let's do that. So here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's subordinating himself to his devotee out of love. So you see, everything changes when there's actual pure love. And the unexpected happens, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead subordinates himself to his devotee out of love. Just like Prabhupada tells the story of Gladstone. Gladstone was the Prime Minister of the British Empire under Queen, one of the queens. And there was a 100 Years' War with France, and then there was a 30 Years' War with France. So at one point, one leader of France came to London to try and stop these unending wars. So when he came, the secretary said, our prime minister is very busy, you'll have to wait a little bit. So 1 hour goes by and so forth. So the man's getting really upset because he's coming to make peace, to save the lives of a lot of people, and the prime minister is busy. So when the secretary leaves the room for a minute, he goes and peeks into the room where the prime minister is to see what is he doing that's so important that he's making him wait. And he sees that the prime minister's grandson is sitting on his back, and the prime minister is acting to be a horsey, and the boy is kicking the ribs of his grandfather and said, giddy up, grandfather. And they're playing. So Prabhupada gives that example that even the prime minister of the British Empire, which at that time Britain was the strongest country in the world, out of love for his grandson, he's subordinating himself and accepting that the boy kicks him in the ribs and says, giddy up, granddad, go faster. So we see how love changes everything. What people do to each other when there's no love compared to what people will do for each other when there is love. Right? So when there's a loving relationship between the devotee and Krishna, everything changes. And that change is wonderful. Like in the case of Arjuna and the Pandavas, or Arjuna or Krishna and the Draupadi, he'll do everything to help his devotee. Now, does that mean he's doing nothing for the non-devotees? No. He's sending his pure devotees to preach to the non-devotees. So this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, where it says, one second, let me see where that is. Okay, let's look at the third chapter, 29th verse. See what it says here. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So we see here it's saying that the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord himself, because they'll do something that the Lord recommends them not to do. And that is to approach, sinful people and try and convince them to become Krishna conscious, which is basically what we do when we go on Sankirtan. And what we do also when people come to the temple and they're completely confused about life, but they have a feeling that maybe someone can help them in the temple, so they'll try that also. So then the devotees will spend a lot of time trying to help people become Krishna conscious. So Krishna is helping in both ways. He's inspiring the devotee, the pure devotees, to go out and preach into everyone, not discriminate. And at the same time, he will protect his devotees and help them in every way to make spiritual advancement. So we cannot blame the against non-devotees, because he's made an arrangement for the non-devotees also to become Krishna conscious. So they're pure devotees, mixed devotees, non-devotees. So Krishna has special interest in pure devotees. For the mixed devotees, he helps them sometimes get their material desires, and also especially to keep them inspired to stay in Krishna consciousness. And for the non-devotees, he sends his pure devotees to preach to them and try and convince them to become Krishna conscious. So you cannot blame him for being calloused or prejudicial, because he's making an arrangement for all classes of people. Right? Now, people like to blame God. They'll say, well, why is this or why is that? But they don't understand. That's why, these purports that we're reading are super excellent purports, giving so much detailed information about how Krishna is functioning with the living entities.
I think some other analogy also Prabhupada gives, where like a rich father, when the son tries to move away from the father, even...
No, it's called the prodigal son. It's in the Bible.
Yes, correct.
The prodigal son was, the father had two sons. One always remained loyal to him. One son left and ignored the father. But after a long time, that son comes back, and the father completely gives him everything. He's so happy that he came back. And the son that always stayed with the father said, Dad, you never did this for me. He said, no, I didn't have to do it, but I'm doing it for the other son because we thought we lost him, but he came back. So we're doing a big celebration for that. Right? So in the same way as the example you gave, that father, he basically roasted the daughter that made a mistake, and then he roasted the daughter who didn't make a mistake to keep peace in the family. Right? Because he knew that the daughter that did not make a mistake, even though he scolded her, she would be able to tolerate it and not get upset. You see? So we're discussing now real life situations, and from a point of view of Krishna consciousness, it's very important that we discuss these things. Right. Okay, so then let's finish.
I think Krishna is very merciful. Like he has given us this body. He has sitting in our heart.
What? He's given us what?
This body, basically, to understand him, basically.
No, he's given us highly evolved senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, mind, and intelligence to gather spiritual knowledge about him. That's their real purpose. But people are so, let's say, misled that they use these highly developed senses and mind and intelligence only for sense gratification. And they ignore using them for what they're really meant for, is to gather information about the relationship with God. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, most people are using these tremendously developed senses that we have, and mind and intelligence, only for the stock market, sports, politics, and war, making weapons of mass destruction and things like that. I mean, obviously you have to be smart to make an atomic bomb, but what's the atomic bomb meant for? It's meant for killing a lot of people at one time. So it's not really a good thing. They used his intelligence, they use their intelligence, but it's for something that's actually very negative. That intelligence and that mind and those senses should be used to gather information about our relationship with God so that we can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Not so that we can kill more people faster and in larger numbers than the caveman who has a club. You know, he can only kill one or two people at one time. You throw one atomic bomb, you can kill, like what they killed, 100,000 people in Japan, in Nagasaki, you know, in a matter of minutes. So you see, most people are misusing the assets that we have, these highly developed senses and mind and intelligence, just for sense gratification. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm saying here is, like, Krishna is very merciful. He is allowing or he is
Permitting.
completing the desires of non-devotees also. Like somebody become rich, so it's I believe that Krishna is making him rich because of his past karmas or whatever it might be. So that is helping basically. So he is merciful. So he is allowing everybody to fulfill their desires.
He's not doing that. Durga Mata is doing that.
Okay.
Durga Mata will reward people with material benedictions, and then she will take them away either slowly or abruptly and put them in complete anxiety.
So does it mean that whatever is happening in our life according to our karmas is controlled by Durga Mata? But she is sanctioned by the Lord, right?
She is the superintendent of the material world. She keeps you, or keeps us, let's say, in the prison house. That way, Krishna is instructing in two ways. He speaks Bhagavad Gita so that we have the truth about who we are and what our relationship with God is. And then, through Durga Mata, when we commit sinful activities, we suffer. So in two ways he's teaching us, rewarding us with transcendental knowledge, and when we commit sinful activities, we have to suffer for those sinful activities. And that eventually you reach a point where you're suffering so much, you say, wait a minute, why is this happening to me? I have to find out why I'm suffering so much. And then there's a possibility you might meet a devotee and get the proper answers. So he's teaching in two ways, through Bhagavad Gita and through the activities of Durga Mata. Both ways are educational.
So something good happens to somebody. So basically we are saying that Durga Mata helps to get that thing, to make that thing happen.
See, I've read you Laws of Material Nature, right? Let's go over it one more time, very quickly. The 5th chapter. Where it says, is addicted to material pleasures, the more one is entrapped by material miseries. This is the law of nature. So the more we're engaged in material pleasures, what we don't understand is very quickly we will also have suffering. It's a law of nature. All right? So let me read it again. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more one is entrapped by material miseries. Now, if you explain this, let's say, to an 18-year-old kid, they say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. You explain it to like a 60-year-old person, they'll say, well, you know, I experienced that. The more, like, for example, look at the Me Too hashtag. These were women that were abused by very powerful men in positions of power and wealth. And they were able to get revenge at one point. And for many, many years, these men got away with it, like Bill Clinton and Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, you know. So all these men got away with it because they were very powerful and they were very rich and they had very powerful political friends. But finally it caught up to them. And then Jeffrey Epstein was committed suicide. Harvey Weinstein now is in prison for the rest of his life. And many of these men all became, shamed and lost their positions or lost their credibility because of the egregious acts that they performed against these women. So all the pleasure they had was accompanied by misery. So this fact is true. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So once we begin to understand these laws of nature, then we have to make a decision what we're going to do in this life and how we're going to live our life. Now, most people will reject this. They say, no, I don't believe that. I have a very happy life. Nothing's going wrong for me. But it's not true. Things are going wrong for everybody. So their life is a mixed bag of some happiness and some misery. And eventually, if the misery is more than the happiness, they start asking questions. Why is this happening to me? I have to find out. So this one person, is a relative of mine. I hadn't spoken to him for about 40, 45 years. Out of the blue, he called me up. And he said, I need your help. I said, we haven't spoken for 45 years. I said, what do you mean? How do you know I can help you? No, I know you can help me. You're the only person who can help me. I said, help you with what? He said, he explained his situation that he divorced his wife. He was separated from his wife and his kids. And then he married this other girl who was had the same problem that he has. He's got schizophrenic, and mental problem. So he married her because he could understand her and she could understand him. They both have the same problem. So after some years, she began to get paranoid again, and eventually he threw her out of the house. And then it was so devastating for her, she committed suicide. And now he's calling me up and saying, after she committed suicide, now she's haunting me. I see her all the time. She's always looking at me. He said, it's scaring the heck out of me. I said, well, why are you calling me? He said, because you're the only one I know who can solve this problem. I said, how do you know that? You haven't talked to me for 45 years. She said, I know, I'm following you. I'm finding out more about what you're doing, and I'm sure you're the only person. He said, I already went to the Jehovah's Witnesses. I went to this Christian minister, that Christian minister. I went here, I went there. He said, they're all a bunch of nonsense. He said, you're the only one that's going to be able to help me. I said, are you crazy? He said, no, I know this. I said, okay. I said, I can tell you what to do, but you have to follow it. And I said, you're an atheist, right? You don't believe in God. He said, yeah, I don't believe in God. I said, but you're going to have to put that aside and believe in God for this thing to work. He said, that's going to be really hard for me, but I'm willing to do anything to get rid of this lady. She's driving me crazy. I said, okay. So then I told him how to make, how to cook for Krishna. And I gave him the information from the websites of ISKCON and how to offer the food, how to set up a little altar, a picture of Krishna and so forth. So he said, I would have never done this before, but because you're telling me to do it, and because I have complete confidence that you know what you're doing, I'll do this. So he did it. After a month, he calls me back, and he said it worked. She left me. I don't see her anymore. I said, okay, what are you going to do now? He said, well, I really want to thank you very much. He said, and now I'm going to go back and do what I did before. So, now you see, he figured out that there was only one person in the world that could actually help him, and that was me. And I did help him, right? And then I invited him, come and stay with me, and I'll teach you more about Krishna. He never came. So, unfortunately, these are people of bad faith. But when they suffer, then they're willing to do almost anything to relieve the suffering. And they start asking, why is this happening to me? So you see, Krishna teaches in two ways, by giving Bhagavad Gita and through Durga Mata. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
One question. So, the examples and other things what we discussed today, so that tells us that Krishna helps the devotees very much. And
you can't blame him saying, oh, he's only favorable to the devotees. No, it's not true.
So, in 2 days back, you said that, like one of the verses that Krishna already said that out of millions of people, only one reaches him. So once you try to become basically devotee, so reaching him seems to be difficult.
It was difficult, but today it's very easy. All you have to do is chant, dance, feast, come regularly to class and listen, ask questions, go out on Sankirtan, take part in the festivals. That's all you have to do.
Hari Bol, Prabhu.
All right, we'll stop right there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.